Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would talk about the fight review of Mr. Canelo Alvarez versus that of Edgar Berlanga, or Berlanga, however you want to pronounce his name. But I'm going to go with Edgar Berlanga for the rest of this video because that's the way that I heard it pronounced. But of course, for those of you that did not end up seeing the fight, Canelo Alvarez, of course, pretty much like we all had predicted, was going to dominantly win this fight. Canelo Alvarez was able to beat that of an Edgar Berlanga, I believe by that of a unanimous decision. I did not stay around to see the scorecards, but Canelo Alvarez, I thought, put on a relatively good to great performance against that of an Edgar Berlanga. But of course, it was expected against that of an Edgar Berlanga. Edgar Berlanga, once again, for those of us that truly knew boxing and paid attention to his reputation, we knew that once upon a time, of course, he was one of the top prospects and he was one of the top new up and comers in that of all of boxing. But then, of course, his career kind of went to that of a standstill. In the first 16 fights of his career, he ended up getting knockouts all within that of the first round, I believe. At least, that's according to other people's testimony from what I heard, and also according to my research. But when it came down to the course after that, once he started stepping up in competition a little bit, of course, he started having a little bit more issues, and he started showing overall that he did not really have the same boxing pedigree, or that he was not quite as much of a danger as what certain people overall thought that he was once upon a time going to be. And I even stated that if you took a look at my Canelo versus Edgar Berlanga fight prediction video, when Edgar Berlanga was talking all that shit, that regular shit that all those New York Ricans talk, basically when they're about to head into a fight, and really not just the Puerto Ricans in New York. New York fighters really just have a habit of that, whether it's Teofimo Lopez, Zab Judah, Mike Tyson, whether it be Edgar Berlanga. But at the end of the day, usually when they finally get in the ring with a guy that can actually compete with them in terms of skills for skills, they pretty much, I'm not going to say fold, but then all of a sudden that trash talking and that tough guy persona, it pretty much goes out the window. And I'll give Edgar Berlanga credit. There were some moments in the fight, of course, to where it looked like he was hurt very badly, and it looked like there was a possibility that Canelo was going to stop him. And of course, Canelo was not able to stop him, and some people might criticize Canelo Alvarez because, of course, he was not able to stop him. But I'm not really surprised too much. Once again, I did predict Canelo Alvarez to get the stoppage, I think, within that of the latter rounds, but I'm not really super shocked by it because Canelo Alvarez is just older as a fighter. And if we're talking about Canelo Alvarez as a fighter, he just is older. And that just happens with fighters in the latter stage of their career. Once again, Manny Pacquiao at one point in time, and this is probably most notable with him, if you've been paying attention to boxing for the past 20 some years, Manny Pacquiao used to be known as a knockout machine. He was knocking out guys like Miguel Cotto, Ricky Hatton, other guys like that. Now, of course, some people may mention that Cotto was with a little bit of a weight drain, and that Ricky Hatton, of course, he was already stopped by Mayweather. But at the end of the day, those guys were still A-grade level fighters when he had fought them. He knocked out Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales as well. He knocked down Sugar Shane Mosley, who I believe had never been knocked down before, at least according to my recollection. But Manny Pacquiao, there was always this narrative about overall why he was not able to knock out certain guys. And one of those narratives, of course, proposed by Freddie Roach was that he was so religious that he wanted to go easier on his opponents. That's what he wanted to do. Which, of course, more than likely is is not the reason. Of course, it's pretty much overall because Manny Pacquiao, he was just getting older, and when you get older, you don't have quite the same snap in your punches. You don't have quite the same amount of power. I mean, of course, power is the last thing to go, but power is always going to be more effective. The quicker you are to the punch, the speedier you are, and the more snap you have in your punches. And at the end of the day, when it comes down to when you're getting older as a fighter and you have fought the amount of A grade level names that Canelo Alvarez has fought throughout his career, from Trout to Lara to Golovkin to, Billy Joe Saunders, at least in my personal view, and Caleb Plant and Jamel Charlo and some of these other guys, Danny Jacobs, you are going to have a little bit of wear and tear. And Canelo Alvarez is 34 years old, but at the end of the day, once again, a lot of people, they forget that this is like his 18th or 19th year in professional boxing. Canelo Alvarez, in my personal view, has not looked like the same fighter pretty much ever since he fought that of a Caleb Plant. That really was the last great performance that I seen Canelo Alvarez in. Then I seen him fight Dimitri Bivol, and I said, okay, I think that he gained way too much muscle mass, and on top of that, he just he really took on a little bit more. He bit off a little bit more than he could actually chew. There was no way he was actually supposed to be in the ring with that of a Dimitri Bivol. No way in hell. When it came down to it. And then, of course, after that, it was kind of revealed that, Canelo possibly injuries, with some surgeries. But to be quite honest with you, Canelo's just older as a fighter. And I think that you can tell pretty much with each and every performance, he's getting a little bit slower, of course, as he's getting a little bit older. And in my view, it's just been noticeable within these past few fights. Now, of course, he was still relatively impressive in this fight, but he was supposed to be. But if this was Canelo Alvarez from about 3 or 4 years ago, I do believe more than likely that he would have stopped that of an Edgar Berlanga. But Canelo Alvarez, of course, still showed his boxing genius. He did show certain adaptations in the ring from the Dimitri Bivol loss, and one of those major adaptations being is that Canelo Alvarez, for a little bit there, because he was stopping guys like Billy Joe Saunders and Kovalev and Caleb Plant, and pretty much ran through that of Callum Smith. He was running through people, or at least beating, some decent level fighters. Canelo Alvarez was getting a little bit cocky there. So overall, once again, he was doing this stuff to where if you take a look in the Dimitri Bivol fight, he would throw an overhand right to Dimitri Bivol's guard, but he wouldn't return his hand straight away right back to his face, and that would cause him to get caught a couple of times by Dimitri Bivol when he really didn't need to. So once again, Canelo Alvarez has improved on that. I seen it in a little bit in the Jamel Charlo fight, but he even did it a little bit more loosely in the Jamel Charlo fight, but I don't think he had any respect for Jamel Charlo whatsoever in their fight. But why do I think that Canelo Alvarez won this fight? Well, he's just a much superior boxer. It just is what it is. Canelo Alvarez, of course, regular, very good with feints, very good with fakes, very good with his jab and his boxing ability, with his upper body movement and his ability to slip, to shoulder roll, to move his head out of the way. He was hitting certain rounds, but I don't think, honestly, that Edgar Berlanga really won a single round in this fight. From what I've seen, Canelo Alvarez pretty much was whooping his ass and outboxing him clearly throughout the whole entire fight. Now, I was a little bit surprised, actually, that Canelo Alvarez was entirely on the front foot this whole entire fight. I mean, Canelo, of course, stalks certain fighters, but, it's just interesting because Edgar Berlanga, of course, I thought that, there was going to be some moments where maybe Canelo Alvarez, at least in the early rounds, to where overall, he kind of let Edgar Berlanga kind of run into some of his shots. But of course, in hindsight, it shouldn't surprise me that much because why would you want a young bull like Edgar Berlanga who does have A-grade level punching power? He doesn't have A-grade level boxing ability, but he does have A-grade level punching power. Why the hell would you want why the hell would you want him coming forward with you, overall really trying to trap you up against the ropes? That just wouldn't really make any sense. So, I mean, or at least it wouldn't be the best of game plans. But I did think that Canelo Alvarez, because of past things, I thought that maybe there was going to be a couple of early rounds that maybe he was going to take off to try and figure out Edgar Berlanga. He pretty much went at him immediately. And he did try and stop Edgar Berlanga, but, Canelo Alvarez, once again, he's just clearly getting older as a fighter. The power is still there. The boxing ability is still there. But, he clearly is diminishing as a fighter. He has been diminishing now for the past few years. He just has been. But the question is, and once again, let me describe why Edgar Berlanga lost, at least in my personal view. Edgar Berlanga, once again, some of these guys, especially from New York, but Edgar Berlanga had this New York Rican, he had this Puerto Rican tough guy persona behind him. But even if you took a look at my fight prediction, once again, I can tell a facade when I see a facade. Edgar Berlanga was really trying to talk himself into believing that he could beat Canelo Alvarez. I don't think that he truly thought that he could beat Canelo Alvarez, at least not with 100% certainty. I don't think that he truly thought himself that, and I think that that's why he was talking so much shit overall in that press conference against that of Canelo Alvarez. Once again, a lot of these New York guys, Teofimo Lopez, Edgar Berlanga, a lot of these guys, they talk all that big of a game, but sometimes when they finally, zab Judah, but when they finally get in the ring with someone that can actually deal with what they can do, all of a sudden that facade starts to wash out the window. All of a sudden, it's not as dominant as what they once were. It is what it is. So, Edgar Berlanga, once again, he didn't really fool me for 1 minute. You can tell when someone truly believes that they're going to beat someone. And Edgar Berlanga, he was trying to talk something into existence, which in my view is not always the worst way to do things. But in this fight, he did not prove, once again, that in my personal view, that he really thought that he could beat Canelo Alvarez. I don't think that he ever truly thought that. I don't think that he ever truly thought that. There was not enough jabs in this fight. He had no feints. He had no fakes within this fight. He pretty much only had one gear. And a lot of the times he was fighting on the back foot in this fight. And he was never going to beat Canelo Alvarez on the back foot because Edgar Berlanga is not a great back foot fighter. He's not great on the back foot. It just is what it is. Edgar Berlanga, in order to be successful, he has to be on the front foot and he has to really try and dominate you from that perspective. That's what he has to try to do. And Edgar Berlanga was not able to do that because of Canelo Alvarez's early body of shots. And of course, he was able to catch him with that great left hook in the third round. It appears that that is the round in recent fights where Canelo Alvarez is able to get the knockdown. I believe that that's also the round. It's either, well, actually, it may have been the fourth against Jaime Munguia. I can't remember. But of course, he was able to get Edgar Berlanga to pull the right hand away from his face and able to land a very swift and very brutal left hook against Edgar Berlanga. And I thought that, Canelo was actually going to be able to get the stoppage in this fight. But of course, once again, the man is just older. The man is diminished. But the question is, once again, is overall, where does Canelo Alvarez pretty much go from here? Well, the question is that is there potentially going to be a David Benavidez fight? Is there going to be a David Morrell fight? Jamal Charlo possibly next, from what I hear, for apparently a mandatory or possibly the IBF title. He could face anyone from William Skull to Chris Eubank Jr. to Jamal Charlo. I, of course, would love to see the Jamal Charlo fight if Jamal came up in good shape. But I don't think, first of all, that fight's going to happen. And secondly, I even have higher doubts that Jamal Charlo was going to come in a good shape, mentally especially. Jamal Charlo has pretty much been done with his career now for the past few years. It just is what it is, which is very unfortunate because I always wanted to see the Canelo versus Jamal Charlo fight. But I just don't think that Jamal Charlo is in a mental state of mind at all to fight someone like a Canelo. But we'll see. We'll see. But anyways, talking about, this, we'll see where Canelo Alvarez goes from here. But to be quite honest with you, just in my personal view, and a lot of people may disagree with me when I say this, even though Canelo Alvarez is still putting on great performances, it is going to get to the point probably within about a year or two, probably at a maximum, where Canelo Alvarez, he's going to have to call it a day. Because once again, when I take a look at Canelo Alvarez and his fights, other people, they say that, he looks fantastic. And he still does look fantastic as a fighter because even though he's clearly aging as a fighter, he doesn't just completely rely on athleticism. He's someone that relies on a high level skill set. He has great defense. He has great head movement. He has pretty much almost everything that you'd really want for a boxer. The only thing about Canelo is that he doesn't have sometimes the best of feet. And of course, he doesn't have elite level stamina. But other than that, Canelo Alvarez is pretty much all-time great in every single category. He probably has the greatest chin that I've ever seen out of any other all-time great fighter. Maybe if you want to count Gennady Golovkin up there or someone else, I'm not quite sure. When you talk about, movement, head movement, Canelo Alvarez is up there with almost any fighter. Upper body movement, excellent ability. He's great with fakes. He's great with countering. He's great with feints. He has an excellent jab. He has excellent defense. Canelo Alvarez is one of the all-time greats. There's no doubt about it. But once again, the question is that David Benavidez fight going to come? And to be quite honest with you, I'm not really quite sure how Canelo would fare in a David Benavidez fight at this point because he just looks old to me. It just is what it is. And I don't want to make that quote unquote as an excuse, but there's a reason why Canelo Alvarez, is kind of not able to get some stoppages in his most recent fights because Canelo Alvarez is just aging as a fighter. Now, he still might be able to beat some of those guys like David Morrell and David Benavidez because of his elite boxing ability, but those guys are also bigger than him. Once again, Canelo Alvarez, even against Berlanga, he's clearly outsized by a weight class against Berlanga. Canelo Alvarez is not really a 168-pounder. But once again, if he's going to fight these guys, or if he's going to keep those titles, then he should fight the guys at 168. So we'll see what happens. But from what I hear, David Benavidez might also possibly go for Dimitri Bivol versus Beterbiev. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not really sure if David Benavidez beats either of those fighters. But it is what it is. In my personal view, I would not favor him against a winner of Bivol versus Beterbiev, especially if it's Artur Beterbiev. Because David Benavidez thinks that he's a monster. Woof! Artur Beterbiev is going to crush his ribs. But we'll see over what ends up happening. I mean, I could be wrong. We'll see what happens. If David Benavidez, surprised me, it would be a pleasant surprise, because I don't mind being proven wrong. But we'll see what happens. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for this fight review. I thought that Canelo Alvarez pretty much won every single round in the fight. I do not think that Edgar Berlanga did enough to win the fight. I don't think that he showed any boxing ability anywhere near close to Canelo Alvarez's. He did not show elite feints. He did not show elite body attack, at least to Canelo Alvarez. He got in there and he pretty much fought Canelo Alvarez like I thought at some moments he would, but it was not going to be enough. That's not enough to beat Canelo. You have to be a great all-around boxer and have A-plus level ability to beat someone like a Canelo Alvarez. And if you don't have that ability, you're going to lose. It just is what it is. And Edgar Berlanga does not have that ability. And on top of that, nor is he the athlete. Even though he's a great athlete, nor was he quite the athlete to trouble that at Canelo. But it is what it is. Anyways, but that pretty much is about it for this fight review. I just thought that would be very particularly interesting. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see where Canelo Alvarez goes next. But, I thought that he clearly won the fight pretty much 12 rounds to 0. But that's pretty much about it. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all later, and we'll see where Mr. Canelo Alvarez goes next, and I'll do more videos tomorrow about this.